So yesterday, as I know some of you are aware, there was an email sent out. It's strange when somehow in our world today you can be immediately connected with millions of people all at once and not even knowing them. And so yesterday, parents of kids in school were immediately connected as the schools across the country sent out a note saying that there was this message that had been spreading on TikTok that today would be this National Shoot Up the School Day. It didn't get as much media as perhaps we would think, at least from what I read this afternoon, because the media outlets were trying to be responsible as well and not promote this idea so as not to encourage anybody to make this day actually happen. It seems it was some sort of sick joke that is going around social media, and those who have the ability to control it were perhaps trying but not succeeding. And so parents across the country, school districts like Copley and Revere and every equivalent around the country sent a brief note that my wife got because I, of course, didn't sign up for the school emails, and told me about it, to which our friends in Boston and Ann Arbor and California all said they got the same email from their superintendent. And so we all sit back, scared, asking the question, what do we do? And it seems, at least again, as of this afternoon, nothing came to fruition to my knowledge. But it strikes me that we live in this time when it seems when life has been threatened in so many ways that life is still not taken seriously. And that jokes, pranks, words can be used in a way that cheapens life so much that those of us who want to take life seriously really have to be on our game. This wasn't what I planned to talk about tonight. Looking at our yard site list, I'm not going to jump to something really happy immediately, but looking at our yard site list, it was obvious to me that, and given that we've lost a lot of people recently, that a lot of people here tonight are here to remember someone that they've lost. So without embarrassing anybody again, if you're here to remember someone, just raise your hand if there's somebody that you're particularly thinking of. So I ask you to thank you for doing that. I ask you to do that because in Judaism, we have a strong belief that as scary as death is, that it is there in part not to run away from, but to remind us about life and the value of life. Rabbi Morris Adler of blessed memory wrote about this week's Torah portion, and I'll quote him again later. He wrote, I think, brilliantly, saying, there are some people who die before the end of their life because they choose never to grow up, they choose never to value life, they choose not to actually take advantage of the time that they have, and therefore they never lived life, and so they die long before their years are over. And there are others who focus on valuing every moment, and they live far more years than perhaps we could count. In our tradition, we have Yizkor, the gathering of our community to remember our deceased 4 times a year. We have it in the fall for Yom Kippur, followed just a few days by Sukkot. We have it in the spring at Passover, and we have it loosely in the summer for Shavuot. We don't have Yizkor in the winter, and yet we have lost a ton of people every year at this time. We lost a lot of people this year, and many of you are here to remember your loved ones. This is a time, the holidays, secular or religious, in which we think about those we've lost, and therefore it is a time in which we remind ourselves how much we value life. Not because of what we have lost, but because there's something to be learned in going through the pain and suffering of losing someone. It turns us back to life, especially in our tradition. And so what I had hoped to talk about tonight was what is a true Jewish legacy. I think it's a fitting lesson also for those who aren't taking life seriously enough today. Because if we know what a true legacy is, perhaps we won't take life so lightly. There's a poem written by women of Reformed Judaism. It reads as follows: "My holiday table gleams, adorned with my grandmother's china and candlesticks. The scents of my mother's recipes fill the house, welcoming family and friends. Their pictures capturing moments in time share spaces on my walls and in my heart. But their true legacy is in the intangibles, in echoes of the love they gave, their deeds of kindness, and I pray that I too am remembered that way." So often we associate memories of our loved ones with objects or places, candlesticks, tablecloths, recipes, but as the poem reads, we know that they are far more than any one object. Those are simply tools that allow us to remember them more easily. And so this week, in a few moments, as Cantor Kathy will read, we read the end of the book of Genesis and the end of the life of Jacob. Jacob, who earlier his name was changed to Israel. He is perhaps the best example of precisely what it means to remember those whom we love. The Torah portion reads as followed: "Sometime afterward, Joseph, Jacob's son, was told, 'Your father is ill.' And so he took him with his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, and Jacob was told, 'Your son Joseph has come to see you.' Now, calling him Israel, they summoned his strength, and he sat up in bed. And Jacob said to Joseph, 'God appeared to me and said the following: I will make you fertile and numerous, making you a community of peoples, and I will assign this land to your offspring to come for an everlasting possession.' And he blessed Joseph, his son, saying, 'The God in whose ways my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd from my birth to this day, the angel who has redeemed me from all harm, bless these children. In them may my name be recalled, and the names of my fathers Abraham and Isaac. May they be teeming multitudes upon earth.'" So, we'll read this in the Hebrew in a few moments. But I hope you hear in it that Jacob turns to his son and his grandchildren, and while he does say, "I hope you enjoy the land," he first says, "You are to be valued by the people in your life and by those who follow you, and you're to carry their name." That is the legacy. In 4,000 years that the land of Israel has been a notion, it's been a sovereign state 2 times, for less than 200 years in total. And so when Jacob is given the name Israel, it is not because one day there will be a place, as we often confuse it, that has his name. It is not because his legacy will be something physical. It is because for the thousands of years that follow, it was a people who carried his name. That's our best legacy. Not a land, not a tablecloth, not candlesticks. Our best legacy is and always has been the people who carry our name, who remember our values, and who do something with the time they have in the best way that we could. They carry us, we carry them. That's how we become immortal. That's how the years of our life get extended. And so I want to close with the words of Morris Adler, who I started with, because he writes about it on this Torah portion, I think, beautifully. He says as follows: "The duration of our life is unimportant. There's a different human measurement for us. Not a matter of chronology, but a matter of achievement. There are people who, whatever the duration of their lives, have not lived at all. If there is a God in the world, then grief must humanize us, for we who have suffered can understand more subtly and more profoundly the sufferings of others. So what a pity it is to allow to die those capacities that the inevitable sorrows of life allow to blossom. to bury with a beloved one the life we still have to give to those about us. Those whom we remember need not inspire us with morbidity, but rather with thanksgiving. For by our memories, we've triumphed over death. We've perpetuated the influence of those who've died only in a physical sense. But we continue to live in human influence, the force of our lives, the inspiration of our lives, so that those who come after us find in our lives that impulse and power that will enable us to be their benefactors even after we are gone. As the poem says, may their true legacy be in the intangibles, in echoes of the love they gave, their deeds of kindness, so that we too can be remembered that way. In these times in which life too often is taken too lightly or perhaps not taken seriously at all, and on days like this, times like this, seasons like this, when we remember those that we've lost, Judaism tells us to turn to them, to remember what they gave in life, how they valued it. In some way, that is a gift for us to inspire us to remind the world how valuable life is and that it cannot be taken lightly. And so I share in the sadness and anxiety of emails from husbands that got emails from their wives who got them from the school district. And I hope that rather than short emails telling us how they're going to increase security, that we can have longer discussions, talking about the people we've loved, who lived lives, who gave us values, who remind us how important and valuable life is. Let's not be afraid, but rather inspired. I hope that's the case this season as so many of you remember your loved ones, and I hope that we can pass that on to those who need to hear it most. Shabbat Shalom.